Hello, Real Talkers. Ambassador, New York Times bestselling author, historian, and Israeli leader. Michael Oren combines knowledge of the past with insights into international relations to explore Israel, the Middle East, America, and the Jewish world. I am so honored. Hello and welcome.
The honor is mine. Hi, Hadassah, shalom.
I have been waiting for you.
Oh,
I've been reading, I've been following
Yeah.
you. Exciting. Exciting especially today.
Yeah.
Because we just assisted to President Herzog's speech in Congress yesterday. 3 minutes and 54 seconds.
And how many standing ovations? That's the most important thing.
Exactly.
It's not how long, it's how many standing ovations.
He walked in and they were clapping for 3 minutes without him even opening his
good.
mouth.
Yeah.
What do we say to this?
It's interesting. I was noticing who the people were clapping. So
Right.
you had people like
Tell
Elizabeth
us.
Warren,
Yeah.
Cory Booker, people who are very critical of the state of Israel giving
Right.
a standing ovation. Now, part of that is just Washington culture. Washington tends to give standing ovations to pretty much anybody.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And except for the people who didn't come to it entirely.
There were some empty seats.
Yes, there were some empty seats, altogether 5 from the progressive wing,
Okay.
but more about the progressives later. The point being is that just because people are giving a standing ovation to our president doesn't mean they're necessarily supportive of us.
Okay, that's
the
what I
point.
wanted to get to.
Part of it is just the culture of acceptance. It's very nice. It's,
Respect.
Respect. Foreign leader. It's also the culture of the Congress itself. Very
Herzog's-
much in contrast to the Knesset, where I served for years,
Yes.
where the big skill you have to develop in the Knesset is able to give an extemporaneous speech while people are screaming at you, fascist and murderer,
It's
right, and
incredible.
child killer, and somehow you have to keep your
like being in
focus.
school.
That you don't have that in the Congress. And you still have an element of good old American civility of, my distinguished colleague from across the aisle. We don't have that. We have the stinking fascist across the aisle, which is very different. Yes.
I think that what people were very, they loved the fact that President Herzog spoke about his father
Yes.
signing there with Truman.
It was a smart beginning. I've
No?
been writing speeches for many years. I wrote many for our Israeli leaders. And in fact, one of my first jobs was to write a speech for Moshe Dayan.
Wow.
And that's how old I am. I was also Abba Eben's assistant.
Really?
I go back. I'm working to stay in shape.
Incredible.
But so I've had a lot of experience with speech writing and how speeches are structured. And I thought there was a very good structure. To begin
Incredible.
by talking about your father is always a good idea.
Yeah.
I try to do it too. Yeah. It's better to start with your mother, frankly.
Yes?
It's actually better, yes. Recently, I've been talking about my mother. My mother's 95 now.
Wow.
And in her professional years, she was a family therapist.
Okay.
And her favorite line was, "The presenting problem is not the problem." And I've been saying on just about every interview I've had, and I've had a great many of them in the last week,
Yeah.
the presenting problem here is the government's reform. Okay, and I'm sure you have strong opinions of it. I have strong opinions on it. I've been working on judicial reform for years, and I worked on it in the Knesset, so it's not new with me.
Okay.
But I don't think it's actually the real problem here.
Exactly.
And I think that is a kind of a thin layer that is covering much more fundamental problems here. And some of them.
I think it's a cherry on the cake. I think that's a cherry on the cake.
It's an explosive. It's probably a cherry bomb on the cake. It's more like it, but it's religious secular.
Right.
It's Arab Jew, much to a less degree, but it's left and right, center periphery.
Yeah.
How many protests are actually taking place in Netivot and
Right.
Ofakim and Kiryat Shmona?
Right.
Okay? And it is Ashkenazi and Sephardi Mizrahi, very
Right.
much. Now
Right.
I live in two worlds because most of my work would be, say, in North Tel Aviv. I'm an oarsman. I row a boat on the
I wanted to
Yard
get that
Cone.
because you won a few medals for
Few
that.
medals. I'm still rowing out there. Not in the medal shape, but I'm still rowing. But that boat club is made up of very high, Ashkenazi professionals.
Right.
And they are very much supportive of the demonstrations, very much supportive. But we also live in the south, and we're a member of a kihila in Jaffa, where most of the people are from Eastern backgrounds, and they're traditional.
Incredible.
And they see what's going on in the demonstrations as not demonstrations for democracy, but demonstrations to sort of preserve a certain Ashkenazi privilege here.
Exactly.
And so I'm sort of caught between these two worlds. I see them both. And those are the real problems here. They're very deep.
What about America interfering and telling Bibi to stop this?
And it's wrong on several levels. Okay. First of all, it's wrong because it's inappropriate in a relationship between allies. Certainly between sovereign countries, and certainly between sovereign democracies, because America is giving us sort of a double message. They're telling us to respect democracy. Well, they are not respecting the outcome of our democracy. So what are we supposed to make of that?
I mean, with all due respect, with what's going on with all the problems they have with the Biden and their family,
and then I make that point. It's a great point. I make that point all the time. I said,
I mean,
Israel is one of maybe 5 countries in the world that have never known a second of non-democratic governance. Now think about this. United States, Great Britain, New Zealand, I mean, 5.
Yeah.
Okay. We're the only country on that list that's never known a second of peace. Because what destroys democracies again and again and again is war, conflict. We have withstood it. We've never had any. That deserves a lot of respect.
Right.
But not just that. The United States, in 2021 had an attempted insurrection. People have trouble with that word, but whatever happened there. And you have a large segment of the population that refuses to accept the outcome of the previous elections. Maybe America should be a little humbler before preaching democracy to us right
That's
now.
Exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know from your point of view. Exactly.
Little snoot, wouldn't hurt. Okay. So that's on that level, it's wrong. But there are other levels where it's wrong.
Yeah.
And the other level is strategically. One, the message that it gives to America's allies around the world.
Yeah.
This is how we treat an American. That's how we treat an ally. Hey, people may say, hey, we may be next.
Right.
Nobody respects somebody who disrespects their friends.
So
and
true.
I've learned that in diplomacy. I've learned it even from the Palestinians.
What do you think Bibi will do? He will listen? Does he listen?
No, I don't. Worse, that was the 4th point, is that's actually counterproductive.
Yeah.
Because it actually forces people to hunker down in their positions. And then the really worst reason is that it sends a message to our enemies, not to our friends, that we're vulnerable.
Right.
And there's been a lot of provocations by Hezbollah up in the north.
Yeah.
And I think there's a connection.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yes, but in the end, I always make this question, and I want to hear your opinion. Aren't we our biggest enemies of our own selves?
Well, we're about to observe Tisha B'Av.
Yeah.
We're in the 9 days.
Excellent.
And
what
do we learn about Sinat Chinam?
Bravo.
What do we learn about Sinat Chinam?
Amazing.
And we have paid such a horrible price through our history for Sinat Chinam. And
temple
and it
burnt down to ashes.
I have so many. It so resonates with me.
So true.
And especially now when we're facing an Iran which is not walking but marching toward military nuclear capabilities, surrounding us with tens and tens and tens of thousands of rockets on all sides.
Yeah.
And Iran has basically taken over Gaza now, and is taking over sections of Judea and Samaria. Of course, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, surrounded on all sides. And what are we doing? And
we're fighting with
each other.
And they love it.
For them, it's a holiday.
It's a holiday.
Yeah. Not everyone loves it. I think that the Gulf Arabs and our new friends in the Gulf don't love it.
Right.
And I think that
they're actually upset.
I'm
and let down.
Yeah.
Let down.
I mean, well, the administration came out yesterday with a line which I thought was not, how should I say? It was rather risible. It says, the debate over reform in Israel is complicating our relationship, our abilities to establish relationships between Israel and Saudi Arabia. As if Saudi Arabia cares about democracy here. I mean, really. No, what the point being is that the Saudis, the Emiratis, were relying on us to defend them. And we sold them this bill, you should know, Hadassah. Yeah. America's withdrawing from the Middle East, but we're not. We're here. Yeah. And we will stand up to Sunni extremism in the form of the Muslim Brotherhood, and we will stand up to Shia extremism in the form of Iran. And here Iran now is breaking out practically. And what are we doing? We're no-show. And so the Saudis then turn to China.
Exactly.
And to mediate a rapprochement with Iran. And I think that sends a message to America, but it also sends a message to us.
If I think about it, especially when you explain it, we're such a miracle. Like, it doesn't make sense that we still exist. And we are strong and we're powerful, and yet we fight like.
But this is the Jewish story from day one.
Yeah.
We have two, I would say, aspects, almost like in a spiritual, metaphysical way.
Yeah.
One of the aspects is just immense creativity and innovation, and an ability to unite. On the other hand, it's that Sinat Chinam. We have that, and with peers. And I grew up in America again, I'm dating myself. I grew up in America in the 60s.
Yeah.
And we in the American Jewish community were part of the most affluent, the most secure, the most powerful Jewish community, maybe in history.
Yeah.
And so many members of my community, some people of my generation, went out to hate America, to burn the flag and talk about America with a K, and support Marxism, and yet the Jews of the 60s and 70s were so creative. Oh my God, we reinvented the arts, we invented science, we invented so many things. We have these two aspects, and I've seen it play out throughout history.
But especially you have so many aspects. You've been in America. You've been in Israel. You gave up your American citizenship to become an Israeli ambassador. You have tasted it all. Who more than you can tell us how to be and how to... You've been in the Obama administration.
Right.
And you've seen now the Biden, for example.
And I worked with the Trump administration. I worked with the Bush administration.
Yeah,
Remember,
I went to get to the... The Trump was like set on the side a second. Yeah. But between Obama and Biden, what's...
I know both individuals very well.
Yeah.
I greatly like Joe Biden. I admired Obama. I was a very smart man.
Admired, you said?
I admired. Back then, I'm projecting what it was like being an ambassador for him. But you couldn't. He was a person who came from nowhere. It's not easy to be president of the United States. It's not easy to get into that office. Not easy to come from the background that he did.
Yeah.
And you had to appreciate that. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean we had to agree with him, and we did not. And that didn't mean he posed serious challenges to us on many levels. Mm-hmm. Even on the most fundamental, our right to exist.
Wow.
And he went to Cairo and said, the Jewish state exists because of the Holocaust, which was exactly the Arab narrative.
Right.
That Europe tried to kill the Jews, it failed, so they dumped the survivors in Palestine. It's exactly the Arab narrative. Such a one as the president going to Cairo saying that. Joe Biden was interesting. He was the vice president. This is not widely known, Hadassah, but during the time most of the time I was ambassador, Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, boycotted the Israeli embassy. Never happened before. She wouldn't return my phone calls. I couldn't see her.
Did you have a relationship before?
I knew her. I had actually hosted her. I was also an advisor to Rabbi, and when she came with Bill Clinton in the 90s, I had hosted her once. But it wasn't personal. This was the zeitgeist of the administration. Obama set out to take the Israeli-U.S. relationship down a few notches. We always have a special relationship. So that's what our president talked about in the Congress yesterday.
Right.
Special relationship. He wanted to normalize that relationship, make it more like the United States and Belgium. And one of the ways you do that is to break the connection between the embassy and the Secretary of State.
Got it.
So my predecessors always had an open line. My predecessors used to talk to Condoleezza Rice all the time. I couldn't talk to her. It took a long time. She finally relented, but one person wouldn't go along with that, and that was Joe Biden. And so he became what they call in diplomacy my POC, my point of contact in the administration, and his staff. Staff included his chief of foreign policy was Tony Blinken, and the head of the State Department's policy staff was Jake Sullivan. It was an interesting man. He ended up married one of my students, but and I had a very good relationship with these people at a time when it was difficult to have relationships in Washington with people in the administration. It was like, excuse me, Dafka with these guys. I had a good relationship, and very open. And that doesn't mean that Biden.
Sorry, with Hillary Clinton, it never.
Eventually, she relented, and so we ended up having a good relationship. But for years, it didn't. It's very frustrating. With Obama, Obama had a very complex and combustible relationship with Netanyahu. Yeah. But he never disinvited him to the White House. Sometimes he treated him roughly and inappropriately in the White House, right? Like giving us crackers and cheese at 1 o'clock in the morning, that one.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we had to ask for it too. They didn't even offer us food.
I thought you were being served like a
photographs taken in from the back way, the whole thing. I mean, the United States has lots of ways of showing this when they don't like you.
Wow.
I wrote a book called Ally, you may have seen it, about my time in Washington, a bit of a memoir, but one of the themes in that book is that Americans are nice until they're not.
Oh, yeah.
and they can change very quick. Americans are nice until they're not.
I'm scared of the Americans. No? I love them, but
Yeah, the Americans until they're not. Anyway, so Biden loves the state of Israel. He loves Jews. He has the best Rosh Hashanah parties in Washington.
Better
The
than
people
Trump?
who brought him into government were Jews, the Jews of Delaware, and remained very, very close to him. And I never could ever question his commitment to Israel.
But when you see him now, do you feel...
His commitment to Israel and his commitment to the alliance and his love was genuine. And he's an Irishman. He feels these things deep, you know. He's the opposite of cold. So I love this guy. And when he got to be president, I understood that we had a friend in the White House, but he's also the head of the Democratic Party, and he has policies that are going to be at loggerheads with us. The Palestinian issue, Judea and Samaria, settlements, yes, but the big issue was going to be Iran. Iran, and he swore throughout his campaign that he was going to renew the JCPOA of 2015 that President Trump had withdrawn from. And we geared for it, and I write about that extensively. Published a big article in The Atlantic that set out once again on the eve of the inauguration what Israel's position was, because people don't understand it. When I said before about the presenting problem not being the problem is also in this case. So the presenting problem for Joe Biden is the reform going on here. And I'm not sure what exactly he wants. He says he wants Netanyahu to go slower. He wants a broader consensus, but he hasn't set out how slow. How much of a consensus? Is it 3 out of 5 enough?
How much do you think
2.5 out of 5 enough for a consensus? What do you need?
Who's controlling him?
So
Do you think it's him? Or there's...
I think part of it is him, and he's not very good at staying on script. He never was. By the way, when he came here, he got off the plane, this is last year, and he said, I'm a Zionist. I thought half the Democratic Party might have had a heart attack when he said that, because it wasn't in script. No, I've never heard any president get off a plane and say, I'm a Zionist, I didn't
Seems like
hear
he wants, but he's pushed back all the time.
I think
he has a terrible vice
here are
president.
what I think are the real problems. I think the reform is kind of an excuse.
Yeah.
I think the real problem is the government policy toward Judea and Samaria. It's the presence of ministers Ben Gvir and Smotrich in the government, which they find impalatable. And they weren't invited. We met at the July 4th party.
They weren't invited.
And they weren't invited.
I know.
And I know that the ambassador was not keen to even shake their hands. So those are the real issues. And then there's even an issue beneath that, okay? And that is, we forget that the United States also has internal politics. We're not the only ones.
Right.
And their internal politics are this. President Biden is stated to stand for re-election. He is not in a very good place politically. And
But also physically.
Well, he's not in a good place. He's not in a good place politically. I know from my own family in the States, I moved here pretty much alone. They're all Democrats. I don't have a Republican to say a whole family. I mean, really, and they say that they don't want to vote for him because to vote for him is to vote for the vice president.
Exactly.
And they're not prepared to do that. It's amazing how much support there is in my family for Liz Cheney.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. They all love that. I love Liz as an old friend, but I like hearing that. But I think that the president is afraid that his own party is going to put up somebody else.
Yeah.
And that somebody's going to be to the left of him. And someone said to me in Washington yesterday, I won't disclose who, but a person who's very good, very keen analyst, that said that Joe Biden would be the last pro-Israel Democratic president. Now,
Makes sense. Yeah.
It comes from that generation where he remembers the 6-Day War, 73, where he remembers the Holocaust.
Yeah.
He's got Israel in his heart, as we say.
Yeah.
And
But
the
you've
people who are
just made
next
me-
in line,
Yeah.
like Elizabeth Warren and Buttigieg, these are people who have called to cut back on aid for us. They don't have Israel in their hearts. And I mean, Obama too didn't remember the 6-Day War. He just didn't. He's not of that generation. It's very generational. So
How much do you think that Trump has the possibility of coming back in 2024?
Good one.
Good one.
Good one.
You like President Trump?
I'm not going to say anything politically in that way. In that way, I'm still a diplomat, but I certainly like
Personally.
I certainly like his policies. I didn't know him well. I knew his staff well. I worked on the Peace Prime with Jason Greenblatt, who was just wonderful. I thought it was
Which we
excellent.
interviewed,
David
actually.
Friedman.
Great.
These are all wonderful people.
Amazing.
Great people.
Amazing.
I don't think he'll be around the next time, though. That's the thing.
No, huh?
I don't know how many of those people who are very close to him, from the Jewish community, the pro-Israel Jewish community, are going to be there next time. We don't know.
He had the yeshiva, Trump.
Right.
I interviewed Greenblatt. I interviewed. They were all there.
Yeah. And they're actually some
Used to make
beneath the radar.
Right.
We don't know about what a second Trump administration would look like in terms of us. Okay, I don't know.
In your times in America, did you ever get to meet the Rabbi?
No, but. I'm here in the studio to no small degree because of the Rebbe.
Why?
Why? Okay, so I grew up in a highly assimilated family.
Okay.
I didn't know what kashrut was. I didn't know what chagim were. Rosh Hashanah. We went to synagogue maybe once or twice a year. No Shabbat. And I got bar mitzvah, but I read my bar mitzvah in transliteration, in English letters. Baruch atah. I was about 15 years old, and I woke up and I said, wait a minute, I'm Jewish. What does that mean?
Nice.
And there was no one really to teach me. And I grew up in a non-Jewish neighborhood. I was the only Jewish kid in the neighborhood. And so I went out to find a rabbi, and I found a rabbi, actually about 40 minutes drive away, who was from Chabad. Shalom Gordon, Alav Shalom, great Rav.
Wow,
and he sat me down. And you're dealing with a kid who knew absolutely nothing. So, and taught me. And at least taught me how to learn. And that began a journey. I mean, the tefillin I have today was the tefillin he gave me, because I wouldn't have even known what tefillin were.
That is amazing.
So, and I still have a very close relationship with Chabad. So and then I taught in the United States for years, and actually, we just hosted the Yale Club of Israel at our house. We had 40 people.
Nice.
I taught at Yale for 2 years, and I lived at the Chabad house.
Wow.
Yeah, so I have a long association.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an honor. I just want to finish. I mean, I could stay here for hours, but one of your books is Power, Faith, and Fantasy.
No, my favorite. That's my favorite.
Which I'm going to read.
No one ever talks about it.
No,
Yeah.
First I loved the title and everything,
Yeah.
but you are Power, Faith, and Fantasy to me, because
Ooh, God,
you've
chills.
been through power,
Yeah.
you are in power.
Yeah.
Your faith and all you've done, everything you do.
And the fantasies.
And no, because
Yeah.
you're winning medals. Everything you do well. You do it all the way.
Oh, I don't know. I gotta ask my partner over here. Damn, she's saying, "Oh no."
Are your children proud of you?
My children are proud of me. I have wonderful children. I have 6 grandchildren.
Wow.
My son just got married, and all the grandchildren are here in the land of Israel. That's a tremendous.
Are you Israeli or American?
Today I think I'm more Israeli at heart. Today, that doesn't mean I had to give up my citizenship.
That's why.
And that was very painful for me.
It was probably like if I have to.
They make you swear you know the rights you're giving up, and they take a big hole puncher and punch a hole in the heart of the eagle on your passport.
Oh,
they give you this passport with a hole in it.
It's like a divorce.
But they can't make me less of a football fan, and they can't make me less of a person who likes American music. I write a great deal. And sometimes I get to write things that have nothing to do with power, faith, and fantasy. I have an article recently in the forward, and I like writing for the forward. You'd be surprised to hear, because it's a left-wing paper, and I like it's man by dog. I get to be in there, and I like the resident righty, and which I like. And but I have a long article, and I'll get your listeners to read it. It's called "The Death of God, Faith, and Family." Nice. In rock and roll. I just love this article. And it talks about, certainly when I was young, these notions of God, faith, and family were in all popular music. You were going to the chapel to get married.
Right.
Yeah, that was the idea, was to get married. And God was in everything. He rolled up his sleeve and created women. And people openly talked about their faith. I opened up the article with the analysis of Eleanor Rigby. Okay. You remember the Beatles?
The Beatles, yeah.
Eleanor Rigby puts down a run. It's one of the great Beatle hits, and the whole song takes place in the church. And everything, the whole narrative, and no one thought that was unusual when it came out. So I traced how these themes in popular music, the way they reflect the great decrease in religious observance in the United States, and there's a direct connection. People stop talking about God. People talk about family. People stop talking even about siblings. People used to write songs about their fathers. People used to write songs about their brothers and sisters.
You can't say any more father and mother.
You got it. And I talk in the article about the end of the family and how that's reflected in popular music too. So I'm interested. I have an interest in the way popular culture reflects. Usually things about Israel. I write about even movie reviews, which is it's a great break from what's happening in our relationship with Washington.
Your last book.
Yes.
What's the name of the book?
So this is an interesting project. It began in a conversation between the Prime Minister and myself. We often talked in the middle of the night. Bibi. And I came in one night and said, we never talk about our problems in the future. We're so bogged down. Look how bogged down we are. Why don't we start a project that will look at Israel's future? What state do we want to see on its 100th birthday? Okay, 2048. So we got excited, and we started putting together a commission which involves a lot of legal acrobatics. By the time we got it all together, the government fell. At which point I moved it to Hartman Institute here in Jerusalem with my friend Natan Saransky, and we talked about
Amazing.
2048. We had a wonderful discussion group at Hartman. And then Corona hit.
Oh, gosh.
I retreated to my room and I wrote
everything
this book.
fell through.
I decided to sit down the heck with it. I'm going to write it. People got very interested in discussing aspects of it. And they had Zoom talks, and they created a great NGO called 2048, the Second Century. And the idea is to animate, facilitate a national and some degrees an international discussion about our future in every field. It's social policy, it's religious policy, it's our relationship with the diaspora, foreign policy, certainly, hospitals, you name it. And
It has been released already?
it has been released, but published by Oren.
What's the title?
It's called 2048.
2048.
And here's the interesting thing.
Oh,
It is
fantastic.
all in one volume in English, Hebrew, and Arabic.
Wow.
Arabic. So in English, it's called 2048, Israel, the Rejuvenated State. Okay?
Nice.
And in Hebrew, 2048, Israel, Hamedina HaYichudit. HaYichudit. And
love
it's
to hear you
divided by
speak Hebrew.
22 chapters.
Wow.
And the interesting thing was that one of these chapters I wrote 3 years ago, again, was about the need for judicial review. Isn't that amazing? The need for judicial reform. And talks about different ways we could reform the Supreme Court
That's incredible.
in a way that would preserve, the balance of checks on government. And you didn't have to be a prophet.
Can you promise me a book signed
Yes,
by
I
you?
should have. Why can I not borrow a book? I feel remiss. Definitely.
Amazing.
Okay, definitely.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Always
Ambassador,
good
it was
to-
an honor.
Honor mutual. Thank you.
What I expected
Yeah.
went even more than my expectations. Seriously. Thank you so much. And look out for the book 2048 by Michael Oren. And I hope you were inspired. Thank you so much.